Hello, welcome to the Jurassic Park 3 Minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And this week we're back to discuss minute 28 of Jurassic Park 3. But before we get to there, David, we are rapidly becoming the Todd Marks Appreciation Society. He's posted up another video this week of a behind the scenes shot. I think it's only about 20 seconds long or something, but behind the scenes of Ian Malcolm and I'll try again. Jeff Goldblum and Richard Schiff rehearsing the lines when Malcolm's trying to point and touch the GPS and Eddie's telling him to stay away, but they're actually beside the trailer rehearsing the lines.
Yeah, this is from a deleted scene of it was the deleted scene where the whole Hammond's team is just kind of setting up their camp and setting up the equipment. And then it would have cut to the deleted scene where we see them all kind of debating on whether or not to split up or not, which we've talked about previously.
Yeah, because Nick wants to split up, and Ian's like, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, he's like, automatically, no, we're not doing it.
But it does give us a good look at that GPS unit as well, as Eddie's sort of holding, and he passes it off to Malcolm as he walks away off screen, and you can see Spielberg there with him too, sort of going through the lines.
Mm-hmm. It's a rehearsal shot, but it's really interesting just because, we don't actually have any footage of this scene, but we have enough screen caps in it there where I assume it exists someplace. It has to.
Yeah, between production photos, I'm pretty sure even the one of the tops cards for The Lost World, where it has the that production shot of the trailers, I think Malcolm's in it it's got its lights on as they're parking the trailers. So
yeah,
there's got to be film somewhere those negatives were taken from for the production shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I figure anyway. There's just too many stills from the scene for it not to exist out there somewhere.
And at the rate these videos are coming out, we might actually see something more of it in the next few weeks. But it's just great to see again, continuing to see behind the scenes stuff and stuff we've never seen before from The Lost World come out.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd posting it up on his YouTube channel, so we'll post links in the group with that as the week goes on.
Mr. Kirby, tell me, when you climbed K2, did you base camp at 25 or 30,000 feet?
30,000 feet. We're pretty close to the top.
You're about 1,000 feet above it, actually.
No, that's a common mistake.
Alright, ready to get into today's minute?
Sure.
Alright. As we end the minute of Jurassic Park 3, Alan had punched Paul in the face and told him he'd better do some explaining. Grant then asked him, why me? And Paul replies that udeski said they should get someone that's been on the island before. Udeski notes, I didn't tell you to kidnap anyone. At the 7-second mark, Grant drops the bombshell, I've never been on this island. Paul says, sure you have, you wrote that book. Billy corrects him, that was Isla Nublar, this is Isla Sorna, Site B. Udeski comically asks, there's 2 islands with dinosaurs? At the 26-second mark, Alan calls Billy over to have a private conversation and tells him to go back to the plane, salvage what we can, and then we head for the coast. Paul, hearing this, steps up and says, we're not leaving without our son. Alan responds, well, you can go and look for him, or you can come with us, as long as you don't slow us down. Either way, you probably won't get off this island alive. Dun dun dun. And as the minute ends, Alan and Billy walk off into the jungle. Udeski, Paul and Amanda come together, and Paul asks Udeski, so, what do we do now? Udeski replies, we look for your son. In the direction that they're going. As we open on minute 28, we get Paul explain why Alan, and he sort of says, he said we need someone that's been on the island, obviously alluding to Udeski had told him, if you're going you need someone that's been there and knows the lay of the land, but Udeski jumped straight in, he said, yes, but I did not tell you to kidnap anybody.
And Grant's like, I've never been on this island.
It's a minor detail that's pretty important not to get right.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes me wonder who they were already approached to where they kind of basically had to kidnap Grant to get here. So, I wonder if they approached Ian Malcolm at some point and he's like, no, absolutely not. No, go, out of my door.
But I could see him then ringing
the authorities and say, hey, this guy's going to go down there. Can you stop him? Save him from his own stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be that. But yeah, you do wonder how many other times he's pulled out that fake checkbook or that checkbook to write numbers. Just does make you wonder how many others from the islands that, or from Nublar or Sauna. Obviously, he's dead unaware of the second island. When we get to the script and novel, he's the one that's saying there's two islands, not udeski. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also interesting because then they ask, well, so wait, there's two islands for dinosaurs? And they kind of avoid answering that question, which is really interesting because then we could the whole fandom between 2001 and 2015, pretty much most of the fandom assumed that Isla Nublar had been abandoned and all of the dinosaurs just forgotten or destroyed or dead. And then we get 2015 and Jurassic World comes out and we find out, oh, the island's alive? Oh, they built a new park on it. Oh.
Yeah, especially reading through the Lost World novel at the moment too, just how, not how well, but how InGen being bankrupt and no longer around helps the island be isolated, helps the world forget about the sort of incidents that happen there, whereas here you've still got InGen. Yes, by the Lost World, they're going to try to get some money, but post then it's sort of come out publicly and everyone's going to know about, which does. It's always been that big question: what the hell's going on or happened on Nublar? And they've said sort of what's been happening there in later on in the franchise. So some of those questions have been answered. A lot haven't.
Well, it's always been interesting. I think a lot of fans would enjoy, and this is just stepping aside from the minute for a while, that they would enjoy I'm not really sure if you would call it like a side series or a betweenquel, something that would tell us what happened, how they set up Isla Nublar for Jurassic World and all that. Of course, I know a lot of fans would also enjoy a prequel to the first Jurassic Park, seeing the creation of Jurassic Park, the fall of Isla Sorna, that kind of first moment when we see Hammond's eyes light up when a live dinosaur hatches out of an egg. He's like, we've done it. And Wu has like kind of this it's alive moment, you know?
Yeah, there's constantly discussion about that on the fan groups, and it's I know there's a lot of discussion too, where especially with the Lost World, a lot of fans or people that really love Jurassic Park dislike the Lost World because of the second island coming in, and I know Kyle and Brody over on Jurassic Park Minute, they discussed that where they would have liked to see the sequel go, and they would have liked to see like that abandoned amusement park. It can still be a dark film, but be set on Nublar post the fall of the park. But you could probably fit something in there, but then you've always got that problem of, well, here we are back on the island getting chased by dinosaurs, and you could do some smart writing and add more human villains and not have the dinosaurs be as villainous, just have them being dinosaurs and getting in the way and that sort of thing. But even just a novel of Wu cleaning the island up, all that sort of stuff, just the backstory there instead of a couple of paragraphs here on the marketing site and what may have been included in that Claire book novel, which I don't think was a lot.
That is something I would like to see in the next Jurassic Park movie, is the dinosaurs acting like dinosaurs and not like, like monsters. Yeah,
well, it sort of goes back to Back to the Future. I remember Bob Gale said if the time machine DeLorean was the way to solve the problem, then you've failed at telling the story or something. Like, it should be just the MacGuffin to get you into the story, and then you should have sort of that classic one instance or incidents leading into another, and just when you think you're getting ahead, something else happens to shoot you down again. Where, same with Jurassic Park, like or the franchise, if you're telling a story and you're relying on the dinosaurs to be a key part of that story as villains instead of just being dinosaurs and hindering the story, then that's sort of where where the later franchise has gone, where no, we're going to have Blue come in and save the day not because it's just a raptor in a building that finds Hoskins, but no, it's going to remember him from earlier and be a character and kill Hoskins pretty brutally, and the fan's supposed to say yay.
I don't even mind them so much being characters, just not saving the day all the time, or being like straight villains all the time, you know? In the original Jurassic Park movies, the dinosaurs were like a force of nature. They're like a wind. In the same way that John Carpenter describes Michael Myers as an evil wind, I describe the dinosaurs as a wind. There's a force of nature.
Yeah.
A wind can neither be good nor evil. It just exists. And what happens within that wind is what makes it's like a hurricane. It's not that the wind blows; it's what the wind blows. You know, if that makes any sense. It's not the fact that the wind is dangerous. It's the fact that the things that the wind does is dangerous.
Yeah, and case in point, you can see a lot of photos of objects impaled into palm trees. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not through any fault of the wind itself. It just happened to be there. It's like chaos there. It's circumstance.
Yep. So if you're standing in front of a Tyrannosaur, then you're going to get eaten.
Pretty much.
But I suppose continue on the book theme a little bit here too. Paul steps forward and says, "Sure you have. You wrote that book," which now sort of raises some more questions. We sort of discussed back when Alan was doing that lecture if he'd gone after sort of money by selling his story after the San Diego incident and everything come out. We knew he had a book written before Jurassic Park, and as Eric will say later, he liked dinosaurs back then, whereas now we see Ian's book in Jurassic World, which seems to be a post-Lost World novel, just because of the image they use on the back of it, or the front of it. But it seems here that Alan may have wrote a novel as well post-Jurassic Park, because they say Amanda comes forward a little bit later and says, "Still, you have survived dinosaurs before. You saved those kids," which sort of points to the fact that he wrote about Tim and Lex in the in that novel, in that book as well. So I wonder if he did sort of write out a Jurassic Adventure book telling his exploits on Isla Nublar.
Well, that would be interesting. A book about Alan Grant, what he was doing right up to Jurassic Park, and then his adventures on the island, bringing the kids back, and then ending with him leaving it. I think that could sell a lot of copies. Don't you?
Yeah, and we talked earlier about whether or not he's actually got PSD in this film, or has had it in the past, and that might be why he and Ellie split. Well, if he's trying to deal with it, then writing about it may be a help as well. But I'm not a psychologist, so that might be the wrong thing to do. But it seems like that's something you would do. And yeah, if there's a book there, obviously with the success of Jurassic World, people were clamouring to see dinosaurs, and I'm sure in a post Lost World world they would have been wanting to read all about the dinosaurs, how they come back to life, and all about Jurassic Park. And then and getting back to the main film, that Paul says, "Sure you have. You wrote that book." We get that shot from behind Grant, and he's got blood all over his jacket, which sort of could allude to earlier in the script, as we were saying in previous minutes, where he was supposed to get covered in blood during the Tyrannosaur and Spinosaur fight.
I'd never considered that. I don't think I ever really noticed how much blood he had on him.
Yeah, because it's a lot, and especially being on the outside of that jacket, it's a lot of blood to be his wound. Even if it was getting tossed around inside the plane, it would sort of allude to him copping some blood from the Tyrannosaur when the two were fighting. But Billy says that was Isla Nublar, this is Isla Sorna, Site B. And an injured Udeski sort of asks a rhetorical question. You mean there are two dinosaurs? There are two islands with dinosaurs on them? And I love here too how he's still got he's got a knife there on his combat vest. He's got the ammunition clips in his vest as well, which are useless at this point, but he's still got that knife there, which might be useful later. But But both Paul and Amanda jump in here and shoot Udeski down and tell him to be quiet, which is sort of interesting. They paid him to be here and look after him, yet they're telling him to shut up, basically. And then Alan asks, how long have they been missing? And the two sort of look at each other, and Paul says 8 weeks, which that's a long time beyond this island. I think the longest time we've ever had a story on these islands is about 2 days. So, and Alan blinks a few times and sort of calls Billy over for a private chat and tells him we'll go back and salvage what we can from the plane. Then we make for the coast. But the conversation isn't so private because Paul puts his foot down and says, Dr. Grant, we aren't leaving without our son. And Grant pretty much then tells him how they are. Well, you can go back and look for him, or you can stick with us as long as you don't hold us up. Either way, you probably won't get off this island alive. He's dealt with the dinosaurs once before and only got out by the skin of his teeth, and now here he is, no weapons. He hasn't got his shotgun like he did in the first film. And we get that sort of ominous music play over as Billy and Grant turn and walk away. Off into that large jungle set soundstage.
Actually, this is a on location.
Oh.
Yeah, this one was, I forget the location, but this one was on location. Or this scene, anyway, was shot on location.
Okay.
It's near, it's like right in the same spot they filmed the, where they find the parasail.
Oh, okay. And as they walk away, Udeski slowly walks over to the Kirbys, and they're expecting answers. Paul asks, so, what do we do? And as the minute ends, Udeski says, we look for your son. And next minute we get the end of the line, which is fantastic. In the direction that they're heading, as you see them sort of, you see Grant and Billy walking off into the jungle. But that'll be for later on in the week. Looking briefly at the script and novel comparisons, after Udeski says there are 2 islands, there's a little bit of extra dialogue. Amanda says, still, you have survived dinosaurs before, you saved those kids, which we mentioned before. Grant responds, a few of us survived, a lot more died. And we were better prepared and better armed. And then he goes into asks how long they've been missing, which I was meant to do the numbers before. In Jurassic Park, we lost Nedry, Gennaro. I'm not going to include Joffrey in that because he died before they were at the park.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray Arnold, so you lose three there.
No, Muldoon.
Oh, Muldoon, so 4. Then you have the 2 kids, Grant, Ellie. So you got 5 that survived, so...
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really rewatch the film before they wrote that bit of dialogue.
And technically, I don't think InGen ever counts Nedry among the dead because they never found his body and never knew if he actually got off the island or not.
No, and that goes back to that boardroom scene that we've talked about before as well. Yeah, no Nedry in the payouts. And from memory, in the novel too, it's Dodson never knows what Nedry's ultimate fate was. He'd always assumed he took the money and ran.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I found that interesting. And I wouldn't say they were better prepared and better armed. That whole final act of Jurassic Park, they're lucky enough to get a shotgun that's only got 5 rounds or 8 rounds in it. Then that's what all they got to get to the helipad.
Yeah, true. But to be fair, they did in the bunker. They had multiple shotguns, as well as some M16s as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Plus, they had the gas-powered jeeps, and that could get them pretty much anywhere on the island, and that probably counts as being better prepared.
Plus, they did get the security systems back on, which would have gave them electric fences for the ones that weren't damaged, so they could for the most part, contain the raptors and contain what had already been out once the fences and the door locks had been reactivated.
Mm-hmm.
Except it just wanted to come through the glass. After they say 8 weeks, Billy and Grant sort of look at each other, speechless, and sort of it's mentioned that it may as well be 8 years, which, again, as we said before, 8 weeks is a long time. And Grant sort of tells them, after all you've seen today, do you really think your son's still alive? And Amanda replies, he's smart, Dr. Grant, and he knows much about dinosaurs, which, yes, you might have some info. Even us, we know a bit about